go. All right, looks like we're up and running. Back to Adobe Live streaming here on Facebook. My name is Terry White, Worldwide Design and Photography Evangelist for Adobe. It's my pleasure to be streaming to you live today on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon here in Atlanta. Today we're going to be taking a look at some of my favorite new things that were introduced in 2018 for Illustrator CC. I don't stream on the Illustrator channel that often, but when I do, it's always a blast to see so many Illustrator users. And hey, Dana Pride, and to see all the cool things that you do. I'm not an illustration person. I'm not an illustrator, so I don't draw, so that's why I don't spend a lot of time here. But I've been using Illustrator since Illustrator 88, and that's as in 1988. So I've been using it for a while. I know the application. I'm just not creatively inclined to draw. But that doesn't mean I can't show you some cool things that will help you draw better and help you get things going. So Rochelle, Mark, and Nadia, welcome as well. Victoria, Max, Lacey, I see you. Paulo, welcome everyone. And with that said, let's go ahead and dive right into it. Yes, gradients. Lacey, I saw your comment. Gradients are king in Illustrator CC for 2018, or 2019, I should say. And with that said, let's go ahead and dive in. Now I have a note here on my Illustrator display for just to simply remind me to show you this feature. It's not something that you do on your page or on your document. I'm just going to show it to you as a preference. So when you go to your preferences now, and you go to your user interface preferences in Illustrator, one of the new things, and this is great and people have been asking for this kind of stuff for years. We've been doing it slowly by slowly, application by application. But in Illustrator, this is kind of a big deal for people that work on high resolution displays. You're working on a 4K, 5K, 8K, whatever display it is. And as you know, the higher the resolution, the smaller the interface gets. So now in Illustrator, you have control over your own UI scaling. You can go ahead and scale things up bigger, smaller, and by default, the cursor will scale proportionally anyway. So right now I keep things small because I'm working at 1920 by 1080 for the purposes of live streaming. But if I were working on my true resolution for like my iMac 512K, then I might want things to be a little bit larger as far as the interface is concerned so that I can see them better. So you can scale this from small to large. It does not take effect until you quit and relaunch Illustrator, but you do have the option to do that. So with that said, I'm going to keep it on small for now because small is great on 1080 or on 1080p display. But if I were working on my higher resolution display, I would absolutely crank it up a little bit higher. All right, so that was one. Let's jump over to my next favorite new thing. And that is Puppet Warp. Puppet Warp was introduced, I don't remember when, I think it was actually 2017 where Puppet Warp was actually introduced, but Puppet Warp got an update in 2018 that uses Adobe Sensei. So what is Puppet Warp? Puppet Warp is something that first appeared in Photoshop, and it allowed you to plot pinpoints on your photo and then be able to bend your photo and twist and do things to your photo. So this works great if you cut someone out of the background and you need to bend them or move them or tilt them or whatever. Puppet Warp was great for that. But it really is cool for Illustrator because it helps you not have to put down all these new paths and points to turn or bend something. So what's new, Puppet Warp's been there, like I said, since 2017. But what's new, and here, let's see, yep, I can select this all as one. Now you see that this is just basically different vectors that are grouped together. But when I go to Puppet Warp, which is actually in Illustrator as a tool, before it would just put a mesh down and you would have to click all the points where you want it to be able to bend something. Now Adobe Sensei looks at your image and says, I can guess where you might want your points, and it puts them down for you. Now, you can still put down more. You can still put down ones exactly where you need them to be. But Adobe Sensei might do all the ones you need just to bend the object the way you want. So when I click on the pen tool, you see that it put down a point here on the head, put down one here on the hand, put down one here on the book, put one on each foot, so that now I can pick the foot up and move it around without me having to manually, without me, sorry, I get silly with the puppet work, without me having to manually do it. Now, of course, that also works on the arm. Now the arm gets a little funky because there are no more pinpoints. So this is where I could say, nope, I want one here, I want one there. So now that I can bend it that way, I can bend it this way. That one's kind of funky. And maybe I want one on his waist. So when I bend him, bend his body like that, it will bend at the waist as well. So puppet work using Adobe Sensei to put down the pinpoints for you can really help. And again, it gets you started. If you need to put down more, you can certainly put down more pinpoints. Now, I wondered, because a lot of times Adobe Sensei or Adobe automated things are geared towards people. So this is an illustration of a person. I wonder, would that work with non-people? Like, would it figure out where to put down pinpoints? And so I'm going to try it. So I have an illustration of a dog here. Now, this is in my library, just so fair note that if you pull it down from the library, it's going to be linked. Puppet Warp doesn't work on linked things. So I'm going to hold down the Option or Alt key before I pull it in. Now I can let go of the Option or Alt key because when I pull it in, it will be disconnected from that library item. So same thing. I'm going to go to the Puppet Warp tool and just click. And yep, it put down some pinpoints for me. It even identified the tail. So I could wag the tail. And if I wanted to wag it a little bit better, I'd probably put one right there as well. So I can wag the tail independent of the dog. And same thing for the ears there. Get some floppy ears going. It can be kind of fun. And of course, there as well. So Puppet Warp got an improvement in 2018. You can have all the fun there you want with Puppet Warp. All right, next one. Cropping. The crop tool was a big new feature in Illustrator, I think, again, back in 2017. What happened in 2018 was something along the same lines of ContentAware Crop, meaning something Adobe Sensei powered, our artificial intelligence, figuring out if you're going to crop something, where you might want to start with the crop handles. So for example, if I select this first image, well, if I were to ask anyone here, what's the main subject of the image, you'd probably say this person standing on the rocks. Same thing here. If I were to say, what's the main subject of this image, you'd probably say this elk or deer or whatever animal that is. So if I were to crop the image, I'd probably still want to keep the main part of the image intact, and I'm cropping away excess parts of the image. So just by selecting that image and clicking crop image, it figures out, oh, this is probably the important part of the image that you want to keep. You're free to go anywhere else you want, but I'm going to start there. So if you want some more of the left side, no problem. You want some more of the right side, no problem. But I'm going to get you started in the right spot where I'm going to crop down to what I think is the main subject, and you can take it away from there. So again, I can apply that, and that becomes my new crop. So same thing. Wondered if it worked with animals or oh, thank you, moose. A luxury card store said, oh, that's a moose. See how lame I am when it comes to identifying animals. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and hit crop to see if it works on the moose. And it did. And it even did kind of a smart thing in terms of wildlife photography. Although I wasn't sure what kind of animal that was. One thing I do know about animal photography is that when you're composing the shot, you want to always compose it so that the animal has room to run or walk in the scene. So what you don't want is this. You don't want to crop it right up to the edge of the front of the animal or the face of the animal. You want the animal to have room to walk away. So I thought that was pretty cool, that it not only identified what the main subject was, but it didn't crop into it tightly, especially from the front. So that could just be a fluke. It could be just the way it works. I don't know, but it did it the right way for me this time. And then I can say, no, I really wanted to crop a little bit of the top and I wanted to crop a little bit of the grass, but I definitely want to keep some running room for the moose to be able to run. All right, next up, and I have been consistently screwing this up on each live stream this week. So it's an elk, it's a moose. Okay, now there's a battle going on. I think it's an elk. I could be wrong. But Debbie and Dennis say it's an elk, so luxury card store, not a moose. All right, I'm going to agree that it's an elk. You guys can, battle that out in the chat. But anyway, David said that's an elk as well. So we have 3 elks to 1 moose. I think the elk's going to win. Aside from that, I've been screwing this part of the demo up twice already this week. I've just not had good luck with this feature. I showed it once on Monday stream. I showed it again yesterday on the InDesign stream. And now I'm going to show it on the Illustrator stream. And everyone's saying it's an elk, it's a moose, it's an elk, it's a moose. It's no longer relevant. All right, let's go ahead and talk about visual font browsing. I'm going to go ahead and select this, and reindeer, love that. I'm going to go ahead and select this text, and we're going to talk about visual font browsing. This is what I've been messing up on. Visual font browsing is a new feature in both Illustrator and InDesign. So Monday I showed it in InDesign, I think. And yesterday I showed it in InDesign. So this is actually the first time I'm showing it in Illustrator. What it allows you to do, and it gives you a whole new font selection menu, select pop-up. So when I click on this, it says it's Myriad Pro regular, and of course I could change all that the way I normally would. But when I click to bring up the font choices, this is the new visual font browsing. So first and foremost, the thing you'll notice is that not only does it give me the fonts that I have listed here, but it shows me in the font menu the text that I selected. So I selected something called visual font browsing. So all my previews say visual font browsing. That's feature number 1. Feature number 2 is that you can narrow down your font list based on filters. And by the way, this part is not where I screwed up. This all worked great. So filters. So I can say, show me just my sans serif font, show me my heavier sans serif font. So it'll narrow down the list so I can put those filters on and see what this would look like, not only in the menu, but also on the canvas as well. So far, so good. And of course, you can at any time just clear all those filters and go right back to your whole list of fonts. The next thing is your favorites. So you see the ones with stars next to them, and some don't have stars. The ones with stars are ones that I have marked as favorites. And of course, you can click and just show your favorites in the list. And that's not new. That's been around in Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign for a while now. This one's kind of cool. Show me the ones I recently added. So today I added this font called Emily Austin. Yesterday I added Adventure. The day before I added Adorn a Grave. So it's showing me the 3 fonts that I just recently added. Great. Turn that on or off. Now, last but not least, 2 things. Number 1, we know that your fonts come from, when are you going to work on AE? When am I personally going to work on AE? That's more Jason's realm. Jason is our video audio guy. So Jason does After Effects. I dabble in it. So you probably want someone who's good at it. So go watch Jason. Anyway, the show activated fonts. Now, as you know, you can install fonts from anywhere. We don't restrict you. You can buy your fonts wherever you buy your fonts. You can get free fonts wherever you get your free fonts. And of course, with this unchecked, it shows me all the fonts I have, no matter where they came from, whether they came from Adobe or any other foundry that I've gotten fonts from. But when I check this, this will then show me just the ones I've activated from my Creative Cloud account, from my used to be font kit, or Typekit, I mean, and now it's called Adobe Fonts. So Typekit became Adobe Fonts in October. And of course, now I can say, just show me the ones from Typekit or Adobe Fonts. And what's cool about this is any one of these I use, I know if I hand this document over to another Adobe Creative Cloud member, they'll be able to use these same, oh, I kind of like that font, by the way. And I'm going to mark that as a favorite. They'll be able to use these same fonts because they are available to all Creative Cloud members. Now, here's what's new. I'm going to uncheck that box for a second, or uncheck that cloud. Find more. This is the big new thing. What this says is I don't like any of my fonts, whether they came from Adobe or came from somewhere else. I want to see more. So I'm going to click on Find More. And what this is now showing me is the thousands of fonts available as part of my Creative Cloud membership. This is showing me the thousands of fonts available to me as a Creative Cloud member, whether I've synced them or not. And more importantly, it's letting me see them in context, even though I've never downloaded them or never synced them. So this Battery Park Regular, I think is kind of cool. It's kind of grungy. Back in the day when everyone was doing the grungy stuff, that would have been a cool font to have. So I'm going to go ahead and download that font right now. So when I click the activate, this is the part that I've been screwing up on because it takes a few seconds to activate it. And I'm going to also, you can mark it as a favorite right here and now. And I'm going to go ahead and click out of it. Now, what's the name of that font again? Battery Park Regular. Click out of this. And when I go back, Battery Park Regular should be there. If I say, show me the recents, there it is. I'm going to click. Finally, did that the right way. And I think what I was doing yesterday and the day before was I was never releasing the menu. Yeah, I think if it works better, release the menu, then come back to the menu, and everything should be there the way you expect. So now that font is there, available for me to use, no matter which application I'm using, whether it's Adobe or not. And of course, any Adobe applications I have open, you will be able to use them immediately. So if I had Photoshop open right now, I could switch over to Photoshop, go to the font menu, start using that font. After Effects, Premiere, InDesign, whatever it is. Okay, so visual font browsing, brand new, and the ability to view in context, view fonts you've never even downloaded or synced yet. No more 100 font limit, where it used to be you could only sync 100 fonts at a time, even though we never enforced it, but that limit's gone. And now, again, the big thing is seeing the thousands of fonts on the library that you don't have or never had and being able to see them in context. Okay, moving on. Next up, let's talk about the new, I always forget the name of it. I want to talk about global edits. Okay, global edits. Global edit means that you've got two or more of the same thing in your design, whether it's on the same artboard, different artboards, or whatever, and you want to make a global change to it. You want to make a global edit. Now, if you were thinking ahead and you were a good Illustrator user, you would create a symbol and then place that symbol everywhere. So that way, if you went back and updated the symbol, everything would get updated. Or you'd use a library item, same thing, and everything would get updated. But if you didn't think to do that, you'd have to go change every single instance of, in this case, the cat eye logo, because it's all manual. It's just everything was copied and pasted or duplicated and rotated and scaled and everything else. So now, if I want to make a change, someone says, hey, the eye should not be white, it should be color. So I click on it with my direct selection tool. I think I click on it with my direct selection tool. There we go. And I come down here and I click Start Global Edit. This is on the Properties panel, by the way, which is also new in Illustrator. And I go ahead and click Start Global Edit, and you'll see what it did. It went and selected all the instances of the eye, even though they were never symbols, even though they never were in a library. It just figured out, hey, this is the same element, just in different places, different sizes, different orientations. So I'm going to go ahead and select them all for you. And I'm going to go ahead and let you pick a color. Let's say like a yellow. And now all the eyes are yellow. Or you can pick an orange or a red or a green or whatever color suits your fancy. Maybe a gray. But whatever color you pick or whatever thing you do to it will do it to all of them, and it will do it the right way. So even if it was scaled, it will keep the scale. It will do the right thing. All right. Luxury card store conceded that my bad. It is an elk. I Googled the image. Okay. All right. Again, I let that go a long time ago, but I'm glad you were diligent enough to keep checking and making sure. All right. Next up. So, and this is probably my favorite of all the new things, because even though there were ways to do gradients in Illustrator for years, they were either basic, meaning you could do a radial gradient or a linear gradient. Those are pretty basic. Or you could do something involved like a mesh gradient, but you kind of really had to know what you were doing to do a mesh gradient well. So I'm going to go ahead and select the part of this wing like that. And I'm going to go to the gradient tool, which is right there. And in the properties panel, it will show me the original two types of gradients. So linear gradient, radial gradient. But now there's a new one called freeform gradient. Freeform gradient, hands down, if you ever wanted to do gradients and you weren't sure how to do gradients, this is the most forgiving yet sophisticated way to do it. So when I click on freeform gradient, it plots a point. And that point is there, and it picked a color, and I can't remember if that was a color that was already there or not, but it picked a color, and there's a point. So I can go ahead and change that color to something else, like that. But more importantly, I can click to plot, oh, sorry. There we go. I can, hang on for a second here. Let's make sure we do this right. There we go. I can plot a second point and make that one a different color. So for example, if I make that one red, and it looks like there was another point because I clicked it twice. So let's make this one, let's see, we got yellow, we got red. Let's go yellow again. And the difference is these are still free form, meaning I can pick them up, I can move them around. They will blend based on how the proximity they are to the next one. I can go ahead and make them bigger so they provide more of that color, or smaller to be less of that color. They can be changed at any given time to a different color. So freeform gradients are freaking awesome for doing this type of work. The next thing is that they don't have to be points. You can design with points or with lines. If you do a line, that's like using the curvature pen tool as a gradient. So I can click, it plots a point. I can click here, it plots another point. Then as you can see, it starts to curve, and I can click there. And of course, all those points were white. I can go back. Oh, yep. No, not trying to do that. Yes, I know. Thank you. Let's try that first. Okay, I can go back. I can say make that one. Let's see, we're already in yellow, so let's make that one more of the pink. Let's go to this one, double click. Let's make this one more of the yellow again. And see if I can get back to that first one again. I cannot get back to that one. Hold on. Yes, don't show me again. I got it. It thinks I'm trying to close it off is the problem. All right. Here, let's try. Go back to it. I'm stuck on that one. There we go. All right, there we go. Got it. And I want to make this one. Okay, let's make that one more of the red or the blue. The blue. There we go. Put the blue back in there. All right. So there we are. We have our freeform gradients using points, which again, you can switch back and forth between points and the lines. You can move those around and they will interact with whatever you have done. So use this or try this for your next gradient operation. I think you'll get some pretty cool results. And it looks like I converted that last one that was a pen into a line, which is fine. So I can move this around and do some pretty cool stuff. All right, and of course we still have this one, which is free form. And we can do that. And last but not least, these can be sized as well. And there we are. Cool. All right. I was playing with that, but you get the idea. Freeform gradients. So I'm over time, but those are my favorite new things for Illustrator from 2018. We're already into 2019. I cannot wait until we see more new things in Illustrator. It just keeps getting better. So with that said, thanks for watching, and we will catch you on the next one. Bye, everybody, and cheers, and hope you had a good time learning my favorite cool new things in Illustrator CC. All right. Bye, everybody.